Hey, church family, I wanted to take this opportunity to present you with another word of encouragement as we continue to pray for the recovery of our country. Now, after producing yesterday's video, which was focused on the propaganda and the political agenda of the Nazi Party, I was actually blown away as I woke up today and saw one political pundit presenting a propaganda piece, the likes of which we haven't seen since the rise of the Third Reich. You might not know this, but the Nazi Party was constantly presenting the people with propaganda, which was ultimately designed to devalue and dehumanize the German Jews, as well as everyone else who refused to embrace National Socialism. According to one historian, the devaluation of these groups often was expressed by identifying them with animal life forms, images like the Jewish parasite and the murderous policy that this enemy of the German people demands were an essential part of the perpetual flow of propaganda in daily life. Or simply put, the Nazis were using posters and newspapers to convince the people there in Germany that those who were standing in the way of National Socialism, they were subhuman worms who needed to be removed from society. Now, in light of this, I want to consider the political propaganda piece that Keith Olbermann posted on his YouTube channel yesterday. According to the recent rant of this famous sportscaster, he wants us to believe, and I quote, Trump and his enablers and his supporters and his collaborators must be prosecuted and convicted and removed from our society while we try to rebuild it and to rebuild the world. Well, then after calling for all conservatives here in America to be convicted and removed from our society, Olbermann went on to dehumanize every conservative here in America by declaring, and I quote him, Trump and the maggots. Trump and the maggots. Apparently this is a riff on the MAGA hats that Trump supporters wear, and yet this is also rooted in the dehumanization of every conservative here in America by referring to conservatives as maggots. Now, if history has taught us anything, it's taught us this. That the minute a political party begins to dehumanize those who disagree with their political agenda, well, it's not long before the propaganda becomes a mainstream mindset. And listen, the political pundits who are calling people maggots on Monday, well, they could start calling for the exterminator on Friday. As Christians, we would do well to take a stand against every political leader that dehumanizes those they disagree with. We should take a stand against those who dehumanize unborn babies as they deny the humanity of a healthy fetus. Because remember, our Creator has shown us that life begins at conception. We should also stand against those who dehumanize the people of any race, knowing that the true and living God has made from one blood all of the nations of the world. And therefore, Christians should be opposed to every form of racism. And we should also stand against those who dehumanize the people who stand on the other side of the political aisle. Listen, most Americans truly just want life, liberty, and the opportunity to pursue happiness. The Christian who is standing on the left side of the aisle ought to challenge any Democrat who refers to conservatives as maggots. And the Christian who's standing on the right side of the aisle should challenge the Republicans who are referring to leftists as libtards. We shouldn't be referring to one another in these sorts of ways. Regardless of our political standing, we must walk in love. We should be walking in the love of the Lord as we interact with those who hold a different point of view, politically speaking. At the same time, every Christian here in America should be concerned about the neo-Marxists who are attempting to force socialism upon our society. Every Democrat and every Republican and everyone who is in between, we should be very concerned about these neo-Marxists who are invading our country. And just to be clear, listen, Karl Marx was the father of communism, and not only that, but he was also the mother of Nazi fascism. And with that being the case, well, we shouldn't be surprised as we watch radical neo-Marxists here in America employing the propaganda playbook of Hitler as they try to force our nation into a socialistic nightmare. This includes the brainwashing of our youth as they try to convince our kids that, American capitalism is just evil. This also includes the constant dehumanization of those who are opposed to their political agenda. And with that being the case, It's time for Christians to realize that the political pundits like Keith Olbermann, who are already calling for conservatives to be rounded up and removed from our society, they're pushing forward a propaganda that is reminiscent of the Third Reich. With that being the case, I encourage every Christian to realize that the time is short. And therefore, we need to get back to the business of our Lord. We need to be preaching the gospel message to every person who will hear us. Remember, we've been called to shine the light of the Lord on this dark world. And not only that, but we've also been called to expose the unfruitful works of darkness. And that is what we ought to be doing. With this as the goal, I encourage every Christian, let's continue fighting the good fight of faith, all for the glory of God.